Vinny,
Hey,
how's it going?
good.
Good.
How's my volume?
That my internet, whatever, tech, caca.
I was starting to think I was like an hour off. I was like, oh, maybe it's in another hour.
No, always this fun time with my internet, but I think it's stable now. I had to restart, reset, I had to call people, but I think the world, eh?
Yeah, it's a crazy one.
It's yeah, it's a crazy one. So how you been?
Crazy world. And I've been busy,
Yeah.
but just got done with some court stuff and getting time freed up. So want to start doing a lot more shows again. And been waiting to do this one with you. This one's been on my mind for a little while, and nobody better to talk to, I feel like, than you. Before we get into that, I wanted to say a couple months ago, I was talking to,
Go ahead.
so who was it? A couple months ago, talking to my flat earth buddies,
Yeah.
Dave Weiss and Bro Sanchez and them.
Oh yeah.
And I saw there was some event going on,
Yeah.
and you were in it. And,
There was an event, what event was it?
I don't know, it was like some live stream where there was a bunch of you, and I seen your name on it. And I remember Dave saying oh, if you want to do it through, and I was like, Amanda's there. I was like, if I do it, I'll probably do it through Amanda to support you. But there was some event that I think you were with a bunch of flat earthers.
Oh, that was when Bob died. That was Bob's memorial, wasn't it? That one, or was it the flat earth? Oh yeah, and then I did a flat earth summit, the Mount Meru summit.
Yes, that's the one.
Okay, that one. Yeah.
I was like, man, Amanda, you just get cooler and cooler. You're a rock star, man.
Wow, I have a problem where I can't shut up when I know something.
Yeah, I know the feeling, but that's why it's so awesome. And ever since I found out about you, like I said, you're like a rock star to me in the truther community. So I was excited to talk to you and do a show with you. It's been about a year, I think. And I just looked this morning, that show we did on Killer Priest got 12,000 views, so that ain't bad.
That's pretty decent.
Yeah, and again, a different audience that probably never might have heard the stuff you had to say, So, me, that's me trying to reach out to those people. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Great. So then you wanted to focus on a couple of different topics today?
Mostly just depression and suicide, like a mental health thing. To me, I feel like this is a huge problem. You probably tell from the last show we did, I don't mind being personal. I like being personal. Me, I feel like I grew up with a lot of anger and depression. When I was in school, they were already they were starting the ADV thing, probably when we were younger, you remember too, that was the big thing, Prozac and things like that. They right away were telling me that I had AD and I had issues, but I never wanted to take pills, so I never did, I had issues with my father growing up in the Bronx. I was angry and I had a lot of depression. Here I am in my 40s and, life's different. I had better stuff going on, but I still think it's there. I think depression is a big thing that probably most people have dealt with at some point. Looking at the stats, the CDC stats, our favorite people, the CDC and them, but they talk about 1 out of 10 Americans. I would think it's a lot more than that. I also looking at suicide numbers, really high. They've been going up and up since the 2000s. It seems like 2018 to 20, they had this little drop, and then it just went right back up. The numbers to me are crazy. I think a lot of probably even underreported. I think there's a stigma with suicide, so a lot of people probably don't even want it to be. There's probably a lot of things that were suicides that don't get classified. It's a huge problem. So I felt like this is a deep topic that I'd love to talk to someone like you. You probably talk more about the physical stuff, the physical body with people, but I'd love to, hear your thoughts on mental side of this stuff, your thoughts on depression and this topic. We get into this really.
Yeah, it's important, actually. And I think if you're not depressed, you're not paying attention.
Well
Um,
said, well
you
said.
know,
So it's
because,
how to deal with depression, right?
yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much. I mean, the mind body complex is integrated. Therefore, if you're dealing with the physical body, you are automatically dealing with the emotional body, you're dealing with the mental sphere, right? That you can't tease them out and separate them out. It's who we are, it's the oneness of that. You can target areas, you can describe it from different regions of the body, but the pathophysiology of it all is really multiple factors are involved. And now, it can come top down or bottom up. Like when people say things, oh, how did this happen? How did AD happen? Or how did autism happen? Or how did all these things happen? You can list off multiple diagnosis pressure points that you could say, oh, see, look, it started there. Or, oh, yeah, it's because they're eating this junk. Or, it's because they're not sleeping properly, or it's because they've had a trauma, or they've had a disconnection with their family, or a disconnection with their community, or you could do it from they eat junk, or they're being bullied. Like, so you can explain depression from all these different avenues, and they're all correct. And I think that's why you don't really look for cures in that regard, like, oh, just pop a pill and it goes away. It's
and that seems to
integrated.
be their MO, even from when I was a child, right? That's their doctor system. It's
Yeah,
you're depressed, here's some pills. But I would think that a lot of these pills probably add to the problem. It's not fixing the problem, right? And
they
then
do.
even a lot of these pills say the side effects or direct effects, like Dawn and David say, the direct effects could cause you to have suicidal problems and more mental issues.
I remember before I was studying medicine deeply, like I'm the dabbler beforehand. But when I was in that and I was still in university, I met a man named Tucker Gomberg. Okay. He was in the Toronto area, but he was all over Canada. And he was an amazing, dynamic environmentalist. And he actually worked so hard in the Toronto area and in Alberta that specifically in Alberta, he helped that province establish a really solid recycling setup where it was really done responsibly. And like he could move mountains, that guy. And he was severely depressed. And when I was an activist, with him at that time, I also was severely depressed because I looked at the world and I said, we're destroying everything. We're killing everything. We're disrespecting everything. How can I condone this? And it made me feel sick inside my body. And I wanted to take action. And so the next phase of that would be, okay, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to do something about this. And I tried all these different things to do it. And here I am trying to change my external projection. Okay. Which you could kind of say is a fool's errand on some levels.
Jumping in, right? That's what I did too in the beginning.
Well, it just makes to you, that's the most logical next step. I must act. I must change something. I must speak out. I must say this is wrong and try to make amends or try to affect change, right? And very youthful thinking, of course. But I saw that he was such a lovely, humored man. I couldn't imagine that he would have taken his own life, which is what had happened. And when I met his wife, Angela Bishop, we did a tour together actually after this, where I was teaching, this was after naturopathic college, I was teaching about the dangers of pharmaceutical drugs, and specifically the psychedelic, aspects where they're suppressing the mind or affecting neurotransmitters and these sorts of things, right? Where there's psychoactive components that they're giving people,
Yeah.
and not the good kind. So we'll talk about some of these, plant remedies as well that do show promise in some of these conditions. But, what they're using are all suppressants, as I've spoken of before. I mean, these are really strong drugs that once you're on them, you can't just stop them. And most times they don't tell you that is the case, that you can't just, quit cold turkey. So the withdrawal is brutal. And you can actually kill yourself just by stopping. Like you can die just by cold turkey stopping some of these drugs. which is they just so willy-nilly hand them out. And also they destroy different components of the body, including the gut. And we'll talk about the gut-brain connection too in a few minutes. But, when he took his life, what she found out was that in the side effects of the drug is suicidal ideation. Okay. And she was aghast. She didn't know, and she was upset, of course, with the doctors that they didn't give full disclosure, and she had gone to them directly, and there was some words, said, and she made it her, life work to teach that these are dangerous, and to, especially in that community, right? So a very powerful work and a really hard lesson. And he just basically rode his bike to a bridge and just jumped off. I mean, it was like, I don't even know how, it was such a split-second decision, right? Like, and they say that even as people are like in free fall, like when that happens and those types of deaths, that instantly when they got off the bridge, they wish they were back on, like they regret the moment they jump off, and that's such a tragedy, because life is so precious and so short, really. I mean, you see it in retrospect. You don't think about your death when you're in your 20s and 30s so much,
Exactly.
but later you go, wow, now I'm 40, now I'm 50. Oh, wow. Okay. So how many more decades do I have left? I know how fast a year goes. Like a year goes like that, right? Yep. So you start to think a little more existential as you get older, and you reflect on the way you were, right? And that alone, that's your midlife crisis, that's your depression and that segment of life. But like when we are, like when I experienced that and when we went through that with Tucker, that was my first kind of wake up call that, okay, wait a second. These drugs are extremely harmful. I'm going to study this material. I'm going to also teach this material and help people, solve these problems holistically, which means dealing with everything that's coming up. And a lot of it is just this disconnection, a disconnection with people, with nature, with themselves, with love, or the sensation of love, or feeling like they're not connected to even having a purpose anymore. When someone's depressed, they're flat, their affect is flat. It's like a phase. So the first phase, like I was saying, oh, we're going to change the world, and this kind of, that becomes the energy lift where you're trying to push out and change this to make you feel better inside. But that runs out. That you burn out, you burn that out, right? So when you are burnt out from this energy where you're maybe making mistakes, trying to do these changes, you can get to this flat place where you don't want to feel anymore. You're tired. It hurts to go to that feeling now. It hurts to think of it like, oh, all these animals dying and all these bad things happening constantly, right? You'd rather tune out, you'd rather distract yourself or escape. So then the escapism begins, right? Because you've tried, you can't change it, right?
I think that's what most of us are doing, So I was going to mention that to you. To me, it's like music or something. Like I'll go listen to music or watch a movie, and just to get your mind off of things, like you said, escapism.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I do it. We all do it. We're just trying to figure out how to soothe ourselves and how to feel good again. I totally get it. And there's good ways and bad ways of doing this, but it's similar because we're really trying to get new, fresh perspectives, because then what we're realizing is our minds and the internal state of ourselves is how we see our world, right? So it's the lens effect, because I saw my world, excuse me, back then as, it's a damaged world and I have to fix it. And it's my responsibility because, why am I here then, or this sort of thing. So I pulled that into my philosophy. And because I'm very sensitive and I'm an empath and these sorts of things, I feel everything so deeply. And I see people who do feel really deeply become the most depressed and suicidal and have anxiety issues and these sorts of things, because they're pulling in all of this everywhere. And it's overwhelming. So I get you're trying to like, now let's hone it in. Let's focus on this, like, marijuana use or alcohol use or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. There's like 18 million different things.
Lots of ways to escape or block it out. right?
Yeah, you could name them forever. But the idea is, and I get it, but just know, like, watch yourself. Like, I think as we go through all of these things, and I've done this to myself, and I continually witness myself, how am I doing? You know, where's my mental health at? Where's my emotional health at? How am I feeling in my body? This sort of stuff. So we have to become consciously aware. That's the next stage, like how to prevent it, how to feel good, because that's where people are going, I'm depressed, I want out, I don't like this, it's yucky. There's a couple of things that, you know, from a mental emotional aspect, one second. That the rain, whatever's been happening with the constant rain here, it's been washing out all this weird white stuff. And I've been feeling it in my lungs lately. Like,
I was going to ask you about the fires, if that's affecting you, because I know out in New York and everything, I'm seeing it.
Yeah, it's got me a little. I'm actually on a cleanse right now again, but it smelled like an old, like the old man in the sky was having a big tobacco pipe. That's what it smelled like, tobacco pipe.
Wow.
Smell. So it's actually kind of nostalgic for me in some weird way, but it was quite thick, and you know, I stayed indoors as much as I could. But this is garden planting time, and they did it all through where we are outside. But I definitely, now with the rain and the dampness, I feel my lungs like cleansing it out, which is normal, natural, right? Like, you get something in you, the body's going to cleanse and purge and get it out. And that's the same with emotions, you know, and like what I was saying too, with the, like, we hold in stuff, and that also can lead to depression, where you're not communicating your needs and your feelings and your wants. You're not able to talk to somebody. You're not able to even hear yourself. Like, I think women and men often they do have different brains because our hormones change the way our brains work. I found that typically, this is just a generalization, women will seek out another woman and counsel and talk it out until she can hear herself and find her own solutions, generally speaking, right? Yeah. And the men tend to be, that's not cool. Like, that's the conditioning is, you don't do that.
Yes, yeah, I was going to bring that up. They show, like, it seems like the women's numbers are so much higher for depression, but I think it's more that women are actually more comfortable in talking about it. So maybe that's why the numbers look so much dramatic. I think a lot of guys, like you said, have a stigma of not wanting to talk about the stuff, where women, maybe it's more easier.
Well, the suicide rate, I think, is higher in men. I believe.
It definitely is. Yeah, way higher.
Yeah. And especially nowadays, I'm sure, because like the white man is hunted now. But also it's that stigma around, you know, you have to be strong, and you know, and what is strength, and that definition of strength. And so if strength is not defined as expression, and like, you know, be okay to be vulnerable, right?
Yeah, don't cry. Don't
cry. Yeah, don't
be a
show
man.
Weakness. Yeah. And hey, I'm a Leo. I don't like showing weakness. Leos don't like showing weakness. They don't like being in that position, because they come in as a warrior, and a warrior has to protect the weaker, and you know, and the meek, and the babies, and these sorts of things. So you're like, too bad, like, I'll fight to the death thing. So I can't show my vulnerabilities, because if have an enemy trying to get to these things I'm protecting, well, they've got to get through me first. And so I can't be vulnerable, because they'll see that and they'll come for that vulnerability. So it's built into the thinking. But ultimately, you have to soften too. And like, one of the things I was doing when I was feeling bouts of depression or sadness or whatever is stop labeling it as a negative. Like, I kept saying, oh, this is terrible, I hate this feeling, I hate what it is, and it's bad, and I want it to go away, right? Same thing like with pregnancy. It's so painful, you know, or it's so intense, and you're like, ooh, I just want it to be over, I want it to go away. And one thing Buddhism taught me was that you actually do the opposite, where you go into the feeling, you own the feeling, you accept the feeling. You're like, I feel it's, and tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique. Anyone who has depression, I would highly recommend, or anxiety, highly recommend doing emotional freedom technique tapping, because you're tapping meridians, you know, on your body, and you're saying what you're feeling. You're expressing to your own self what you're feeling. So like I'm saying, you know, right now I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I feel kind of depressed, but it's okay. This is just a sensation in my body right now, and I am processing it, you know? So you're like acknowledging it, you're not denying it, you're not escaping it, you're saying, yeah, this is tough. I'm acknowledging this is tough, but also I'm acknowledging it's okay, and I can work through it, and I have the skill set to do it. And I have faith inside my body that I'm changing this and I'm in control of it, meaning it's not going to take me down. So these methods really help, and they're very simple, and you can do it on the spot. You can do it anywhere, right? But if you just swallow it and you bury it, what happens? Like your gut gets tight,
It's gonna
and
make
people
it
feel it
worse.
in their shoulders, like,
Yeah.
the emotion and the mental stuff goes in your body. You can tell, when you're stressed, what happens? Your heart rate goes up. You can feel it, right? Your digestion abilities go down when you're in those states. Like some people are depressed, they don't want to eat. Some people are depressed, they do want to eat. So it all depends. Like for me,
I get
I
where
don't
I
want
have
to.
no appetite. I
I
have
have
no
no appetite.
appetite and I can't sleep. Those are like my signs. When I see that I've lost my appetite and the sleep, then I'm like, all right, am I getting too depressed and I need to snap out of this? To me, I feel like what you mentioned, being able to talk to someone,
stop yourself from putting it on somebody else, and if you do, rescind it, apologize, say later, go, you know what? I apologize. That hurt me because I haven't dealt with my pain from my past. And that reminded me that I feel like a failure all the time, or whatever the emotion is that's associated with picking up your room, and you just reminded me of this core wound, because our parents give us these wounds for us to heal, right? It's part of the contract. And I'm trying, but, I'm struggling, and thank you for listening to me. And, next time I'll try to communicate what I'm feeling in I statements, right? Like right now I feel triggered. So I am going to go take some time. I'm going to go run a bath, and I'm going to deal with my triggers. I love you. It's not your fault, but I'm going to walk away now, and I'm going to go deal with this, right? That would be the adult way to deal with a trigger, rather than blast it on that individual. But that takes conscious awareness. And a lot of people haven't done the conscious awareness work on themselves to even catch themselves when they're in a trigger phase, right? So then I actually wrote an article recently on my Substack about jealousy and where that comes from emotionally and all this sort of stuff, and the clinging, and really it comes down to survival. And all of the emotions ultimately come down to the base chakra, to survival needs, that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you feel like you're going to die because you don't have the thing, you're going to do whatever it takes to get the thing, right?
Yeah, that's going to be the overwhelming importance, is survive.
Yeah.
But,
so this is what I see with the offended. And so if someone does that, I say, oh, it's called projection, and it's okay. You're hurt inside, but you haven't done the work to resolve it. And that's why I'm saying this is the time, if people haven't, to do the inner job. That's their number one job. It will serve their children. It will serve their family unit, their communities. People want to affect change, then you
start with you and then your family.
Because otherwise, and I'm not saying this is particularly easy. I'm not brushing it off either. Like, oh, just do it. But it's work. It is work, but it's worthy work. It's rewarding work. There are gains to do it, because your relationships will be more loving, right? Like your relationships will bring you more joy rather than trauma or further trauma, because you do end up re-traumatizing your wound. You keep ripping open the wound every time you're offended by the same thing. And then what happens is you rewrite the story every time you go through the trauma again and again. You broken telephone yourself.
You just reminded me, there was something I seen not that long ago. It was like these people that had these horrible things happen to them, and they did like a play, and they would, like what you're saying, like you don't hide from what the trauma, you go right at it. And they would have all these actors, and they all would like play, replay these horrible trauma things, and it actually, all of them felt better and were able to move on, or it was easier to move on. To me, it is like, again, being able to talk to someone seems like the really important part. The people that can't get it out is maybe, the ones that are getting to that point where they kill themselves because they never get a chance, or they haven't figured out maybe. But I really feel like it is talking. If we could all talk and have love for each other, that would be the start,
Well, yeah. And if the trauma or whatever's happened to their inner child, if that happened when they were age 7 for girls, age 8 for boys, like it post that, then they can logically have talk therapy or express and figure something out cognitively, because they had the cognitive logical reasoning skills.
I see what you're saying, yep. So,
but if before that, if the trauma happened before that, the talk therapy usually won't do too much. What you did allude to, where people are reliving the visuals or the emotion of the trauma, but then rewriting the ending, that's what people need to do if the trauma was earlier. And then they have done like VR headsets with, so what happens is a computer program where you write what happened. Doesn't even matter if it's 100% accurate.
Yeah.
So say you were sexually abused, at a young age, the program would have aspects in the story where, It's showing you after the sexual abuse, for example. I don't think showing it's really appropriate, but similar sort of feeling, getting you into the feeling of it, but then rewriting the ending or closing the ending where there's justice or you resolved some aspect. And it, because our imaginations are so strong, they've done MRIs where we're experiencing something physically or imagining we're experiencing something physically, and the brain lights up identically. And that's
it's like, yeah. Same
so
thing.
there's no different between the imagination and the reality when it comes to a lot of these memories. So the way it lights up the brain and thinking it's more real. And that's why AI and the whole virtual reality thing is actually can be a weapon and very dangerous, right? But it also can be used as a tool to like complete that, like polar bears, right? I've told that story about the polar bear getting the helicopters chasing it, it's running, they're going to dart it because they do all the checks and check the teeth and the stuff, right? But any animal who still has their instincts, when they come out of a trauma, they shake it off physically. They like literally physically shiver the trauma out, and we have lost that mechanism. So all the little micro traumas or big traumas we're told not to be scared, don't shiver. We tell our children if they're scared not to shiver. We try to stop them from shivering. They're naturally trying to shake off something that scares them and complete it and be done with it. You see this with animals all the time, very scared, very whatever. Done, they don't think about it again. They're not going, oh, that was a really, tough, hard time.
I think it's shell shock too with the military, right? Those people was like shaking, like stuff shaking, right? The shell shock.
And they're trying to heal. That's a healing mechanism. That's why the trauma release exercises are so powerful, because you actually put yourself into the shaking, the tremors. You exhaust certain muscles to make yourself go into natural sort of vacillation of muscles. And while you're laying there doing this, your mind will go all kinds of places. Fascinating what happens. And I actually taught this as a workshop at Soulshine Festival that I go to every year locally here. And the next day, a lot of them came to me and said, thanked me, but said they had the most wicked, wild dreams that night about the thing that they were traumatized with. And they felt like it was left their body. Then when they woke up in the morning, it would just evaporate. It was done. They never even, it's not even
like that negative energy was able to leave.
They could close the open loop, and the wound now can heal because they're done with the lesson. They did the work, they integrated it, right? And now that allows for the emotional charge that's connected to release. Now they're not going to be triggered. They won't be triggered by that. They'll still remember their story, or they'll still, like I did, right? Like I still remember what happened when I was 25. I know what happened, but there's no charge. There's no emotional charge like anger or rage.
Yeah, you were able to get that
neutral. Yeah, you neutralize it. Yeah. Very powerful and very important. And this is the stuff, people. This is, you're worried about depression, anxiety, all the problems that come along with that. This is the way out. This is the work. And it's not even really that difficult. And you don't even have to be like, have a PhD and like be trained in it. You just need to go and shake it off, like legitimately shake it out of your body. Right. And there's ecstatic dances where, you'll shake. And I think a lot of people like trance music for this reason, like they're gravitating that industry because it helps them actually get out of their trauma bodies, So everyone's walking around with unresolved trauma, projecting it on other people, walking around as the victim, then self-sabotaging. And then why do you think we're depressed? Okay, like eating like one about AD. They literally will give suckers, okay, red food dye suckers as rewards to children. These are teachers giving it to children. Yes. And then they wonder why they can't sit still. They give them sugar and food dye that makes their nervous systems go crazy. And now they want to give them a drug so that they sit down and shut up and listen to your retarded political, social engineering freaking lesson about, teaching them how to touch themselves or talk, bringing homework home where they talk to their fathers about their penis, like sick stuff that they're doing. And I don't even go to the library anymore. You know what? We're done with the library.
In the library.
Books are shit. The books are conditioning garbage. I don't even want my daughter's eyeballs to glance at the last time we were in there, it was like a whole just like rainbow flag section of groomer books to have front and center. Wow. I'm like, how is this acceptable? So we don't even go. I just buy books and original books. I learned this the other day, by the way. They're rewriting history, of course. So they gatekeep all the knowledge. But what they're doing is they take the books, they're transcribed into e-format online, and then they quietly change the information inside the ebook. And then when you go to order the book in a hard copy, because you're like, yeah, I want a hard copy because this world's all unstable, whatever. Well, you're getting an ebook copy of it. You're not getting the original anymore. And I found out they're doing this. So we're not even getting real. So old books are becoming more and more valuable. This is also why the price of them, like I wanted to order a book the other day, $200 for like a thin little book, right? They don't want you to have it.
Yeah.
So like if people can, like seed saving, we're saving our history. People need to hold on to their original books as much as possible and preserve that material and not trust the printouts they're getting, and inquire when they're going to buy a book, you know, where's the source and how can I guarantee that this is the original print of, you know, of the book. But it's sick to me. And so even like this is Pride Month. Who gets a month? Who's getting a month of anything? Father's Day a day, Mother's Day a day, Christmas like a couple days, maybe we'll give it a week with Boxing Day or whatever, you know, whatever's in there. Like, yeah, a month, really, for a minority group? Where's heterosexual month? Like, I don't see any celebration of a normal family unit. Like, it's old. It's trend. They make it trendy. This is a sick trend, and it will go. It will end because people aren't having it. They're being marginalized, and ironically, they're being excluded. Like the majority is being excluded to pander to a minority that is traumatized and hasn't done the inner work. And that's why they mutilate themselves. And I mean, the cutting, the I'm now a boy or I'm now a girl, the blue hair, the weird piercings, the tats all over the body, the self-mutilation has many forms. And this is self-deprecation. This is they're hating themselves and warped it into thinking they
made it into like, that's cool. Yeah. Look,
or that they feel they're trusting a feeling that they haven't investigated. So the dysmorphic feeling, right? Because people who have then gone through transition who had the dysmorphic feeling, the dysmorphic feeling doesn't go away, or it goes away temporarily because they have a placebo effect in their head that it will go away. Guess what? It comes back. And it's because it has nothing to do with that. It's because it's unresolved trauma. And most of these people have been abused, sexually abused as children.
Yep.
And might have amnesia even. A lot of them don't even realize until they go through hypnotic, sessions.
They blocked it off. The trauma too much for some, they're able to block it out.
Well, yeah, as a survival mechanism. But guess what? If you block out part of your consciousness, your subconscious mind will run you. It will rule you. It will rule your feelings, your decisions. All of the things you think you know and think about is your subconscious programmed to pulsatile into your conscious mind. And that's why they love the television. They use hypnotic techniques. Apparently there was Taylor Swift concert recently and all these teens were reporting amnesia after the show. Well, they're using hypnotic techniques.
Those flights and everything too, right? Cause epilepsy and all types of issues.
Well, but they're like I said, they know how to use this technology. They know how to our psychology.
Yeah, it seems like they were They already had the stuff protected like World War II with the Germans and Americans. Everybody was doing these experiments. It's probably like 70 years of them knowing all this stuff. And then
I'd say older. I'd say back to Egyptian times. They probably knew.
Oh yeah.
And then what they did is they stole all the Library of Alexandria, burnt whatever they didn't want out there, and put that in the Vatican. So they have all the proper history and knowledge, and so the Vatican gatekeeps true knowledge, lies to you in your face, and they're a bunch of pedophiles on top of it, and they want to come out. The monsters want to walk among us. This is the takeover of the flag. Okay, they want recognition too, because that's what they are. They're monsters, right? So they want us to love monsters. Look at all the propaganda for children about loving monsters. That the Beauty and the Beast story, right? Like, oh, the monster didn't know. But they're okay. Love them anyway. Love the monster.
That's their philosophy, right? Aleister Crowley, do what thou wilt. It's just a learning lesson.
Hedonism.
You raped a little kid. You killed someone. A learning lesson. You shouldn't be punished for that.
Yes. Oh, yeah, it's totally inversion. It's 100% inversion. And the thing that stresses me is, when the innocent are being, used like this.
Yeah.
They haven't been given proper.
The elderly, the children, I mean, like you said, them, going after children and the elderly, that
It's,
upsets me a lot.
and so that's where it can get us upset, and then that can get us frenetic, and that can get our cortisol levels up, and that could get our lifestyle factors low, and that can put us in depression. Just so we have to be careful of what we allow to really come into our bodies, and how we feel, and how we manage our feelings. And that's all an inside job. And now I'm trying as much, so it's a delicate balance. It's like, we have to know what's going on. So we have to look at the darkness. We have to, like I said, you have to pick it up to throw it away. You can't do the new age thing where you just ignore it and pretend it goes away and love and light it all away. It's not gonna, it's the worst. When you just ignore the dark, it's like a snake in the grass. It's gonna come and bite you. You want to know where the snake is at all times. So it's a balance between knowing what's going on, understanding the truth of the situation, and at the same time, focusing on solutions, remedies, corrections, due diligence of the self, love, various forms of integrating your trauma. Like this is the work. This is where we are now. If people aren't doing this now, we're not going to get out of it, because we are continuing to hold the vision of the demons by pandering to what we think is goodness, because they're tricking us that this is good, that we're this poor trans child, we just want to help them, right? Yeah, we just want to help them because they're stuck in the wrong body, so we'll help them get out of the body. These counselors and teachers and doctors, they are indoctrinated themselves and probably traumatized themselves, and they are probably also projecting and wanting to change the situation so they feel better. So it's completely selfish, and whatever they get out of it, because this is the thing. This is the virtue signaling thing, right? They do it because they feel good. They're not doing it really for you. They're doing it so they feel they can pat themselves on the back, saying, I'm a good person, see? Because deep down, they feel like shit. Deep down, they feel like they're not a good person. Deep down, they feel they have no worth. So the ego comes up, says, damn it, I'm going to have worth. So I'm going to do whatever it takes so that I have the illusion of feeling like a good person. And it's a lie. And so now, can you imagine doing that for like your life? And now you wake up and you realize that you have put a hand to hurt people when you had the intention of otherwise. The level of forgiveness you have to now pull into your life, and the work that is paramount, and it's huge. And a lot of people won't be able to,
It's too much for them.
Yeah, I think I feel there is a point of no return in some ways in consciousness. If there's too much trauma, there's too many walls built up.
It definitely seems the older is harder, right? I mean, it's probably easy to reach younger people with this type of information, I would imagine, right?
They're more flexible. Yeah.
And the more I think of, you think you know it all, where a child might not.
It never ends.
It doesn't. I could live to 200 and I'd still be learning.
Yeah. It's like this. I've noticed that it's a spiral, right? But it's the spiral on the angle. So it's like this. So we keep growing and we keep growing, but we dip back into the past. We dip back into the lower. We're still achieving, but it looks like we're going backwards until we achieve the next level. So it's like, this is the dance that we are on. And the best place to be is to just empty out your knowledge continually so that you can be the vessel for being refilled. And so you want to be clean and you want to be clear, because then the light of this place can be with you, can come into you, which is God's communication, right? Because you can communicate with source. It's not.
I found a quote from Jesus. He talks about it, a renewing of the mind every day, a renewing of your mind. Like you said.
The allegory of Jesus is the sun, right? Because Jesus never existed as a man, but it's all allegorical. And so the story goes, these are parables, they're lessons and teachings, but they're written in layered typology. So depending on the consciousness that you approach the material with, that'll be how you see it. So it's brilliantly written in the typographical layering method, so that one person can read it and see it as like a history story or something. Another person can read it in the allegorical way. Another person can read it in a deep metaphysical way and find all these new avenues of what the real information is, right? So as you grow, you get different perceptions. As you pull in more data points of your reality that are true, right? So I always describe it as a tapestry, where you get a data point that seems true, and you put that in your tapestry, another data point, and you're building and building. Eventually, you can weave them together that seem to make sense. If they're too disparate, you might make a mistake between point A and B, so your tapestry might be different or off, depending on later when you have more data points, like, oh, okay, here's how it actually weaves together. So, it's fine. It's where people are in the way that they're perceiving the information. And only those who are self-responsible, have done the work to clear themselves, can then see the metaphysical layer. Because you can't, it's actually a safety measure. Because if you have access to certain amounts of power, like say powers of manifestation, and you're unresolved, you're still in your trauma body, and you're still projecting onto other people and playing the victim and doing the virtue signaling dance, then you shouldn't have power like that, because you'll hurt yourself or hurt others even more. And so I feel like this is why there were all these secret religious societies and stuff set up, because you could only get initiated if you've done the work, because you're going to get your fascists or whatever, that fascist
The
thing
fascist
with
things.
yeah, with the axe, like has the axe handle. Well,
Communism.
they're raw. Well, yeah, but fascism actually didn't mean what it means now.
Well, yeah.
The fascism was just the fascists, those who carried the fascistas, or however you say it, fascists, and were the ones who were the guards and the protectors of energy. And it was two-sided. So one side, if you put it, you could hurt, it could be a weapon. And the other side, it was a healing tool. So these are different metals with one metal in the center. I think there's like 6 or 7 around and one in the center, and it's pulling in ether energy. And so depending on if it comes from the negative or positive node, you can either kill with it or you can heal with it. And that's our duality, like in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, right? That's life, right? I mean,
yeah.
You
And
have
we have the yin and yang, we have this dance.
dualism, yeah.
And we judge death as well. We judge what we don't know, or we fear what we don't know. But I know from the studies and the inner experiences I have that I know we're eternal. I don't fear that. I mean, I fear
I agree.
of it. I fear the change of it. I fear, what others, my daughter and like other people, what they would lose. But in and of itself, I don't feel death is real per se. It's just a transmutation or a change. And we couldn't possibly die, because it just doesn't, if you work the logic all the way through, it doesn't make sense. And so here's what's hard about like death, right? So we're saying it's wrong to commit suicide. It's wrong to end your life in that way. And I believe it is. And I believe it's very damaging to the soul to take your own life. And I would never do that, because I used to read all these texts about stuff that they were talking about spiritual matters, and that when you that God is in design of your life and death. And if you intervene, your ego intervenes in your life and death, there's repercussions that you have to deal with later. And I'm like not interested in more trouble. Okay. So I'm going to take that off the table as a possibility.
Well, to think about it, I mean, God, this is the gift he gives you. And if you're like, well, you gave me this and I hated it, I killed myself, like that would be pretty insulting, I would imagine. I mean,
it is
saying you hated this so much.
Yeah.
That, you'd rather be dead than living this creation.
Yeah. And
I'd be insulted.
Well, yeah, you'd be insulted. But I think that what I've learned now is that we've caused this. It's really nobody's fault. We've created whatever we've created here by our own ignorance, right? Same thing with law, right? We put ourselves into the general public, which is a slavery system. We've agreed to be slaves. And then we complain about when the slave masters want to be more heavy-handed with us and change their rules, as slave masters will do, because it's their whim. Then we get mad and we protest against them, say, well, we don't like the conditions of our cage. Please stop hurting us this way. Just hurt us a different way,
Yeah.
That's why I'm so torn with protests. Like, again, it's like a fine line where, we can affect change. And there are some local council members that are buffoons, and we should really be in their faces and make sure that they don't get away with stuff. And so I see that on a local level. We do need to actually take real action, not just yell and scream and sign a petition. I mean, call them and talk to them, show up and speak with them, like go to council meetings and where you're in their faces about it, where they're not thinking they can get away with it. I think that's actual action that can be beneficial, but the actual protesting against the government thing is ridiculous, because unless you realize you're standing, all you're doing is rattling your cage.
Yeah. Me, I've been trying to, with the law, you probably learning about this stuff too. I'm trying to be all about the private, understanding the difference between public and private law. And like you were saying, these are all public things. So if they, you sign up for it, you're gonna, you're asking your master to check, like you said, rearrange my cage or whatever. You're asking for permission. I don't want nothing to do with the public. I want to be all private, and there's as little as I can be in the public. And for the people that are studying law, I'm sure they understand what we're talking about. And I think that's what you're getting into too, right? Where you're changing your status. So they're not looking at you as just a regular, slave. Oh, this person isn't a slave. Yeah, these are great things. I hope maybe on the next show or something, I can learn more about the law and where you're going with the law stuff. Because I even told you the last show, to me, health and law are like the two things. Like health, obviously, if you're dead, nothing matters. So obviously being healthy is the most important. But to me, law is one of those ways, the non-violent way, a way to fight back and figure out how the matrix is working and how to operate it. Living trust or evocable trust, that's another big thing. I don't know if you've got into like creating a trust account to take out of their stuff so it can't be taxed, so they can't come after it. Yeah, these are all things I'm big into. So it's awesome to hear that you're getting into this too. What was that woman's name again that you were saying that you're working with?
Rebecca Rodriguez.
Rebecca Rodriguez. I don't think I know her.
Yeah, she's not known. She's quite private, but she's recently felt that she has to, speak. So
yeah, I will definitely check that out. I'm very interested in this stuff.
Yeah, me too. And obviously, like, I've dabbled in it for a long time. I mean, back when I was doing Accepted for Values, and I recently found out, actually, she told me that over the last year, they reject all Accepted for Values now, so they're not working anymore. And I think because we're actually getting to the correct method, because we have to teach the administrators the method. So here in Canada, I'm teaching the Postmaster General and all the administrators that I'm sending these notices to how to properly discharge the debt that I've accrued by my error. So I'm repenting my sins and I'm asking for forgiveness, and I'm accepting 100% everything that they're saying. I'm not even changing jurisdiction. I accept their jurisdiction and everything. So it's a very different, it's not conditional acceptance.
Yeah, we're not fighting. We're not fighting. There's no controversy. There's
none.
Yes,
None.
it's key.
It is key. And because otherwise, and what I've been doing all along, not realizing it, as I've been acting to them as double-minded. So I've been.
Me too.
I didn't know, we're learning,
Yeah.
but I created controversy by arguing, and I shouldn't have done that. So then I asked for forgiveness. I didn't mean to cause controversy. I'm going to, even if it's unfair, that's where it still kind of gets me, like, this isn't right. I didn't,
Yeah.
They made this shit up. Like, I don't owe all this HST. I don't even run my business in Canada. I shouldn't have to pay, that's $68,000 or whatever the hell they sent me, bill for HST. I don't collect it beyond whatever they said, 30,000, or it doesn't even matter. That's the public.
But like you said, it's great. It goes like with everything else we've been talking about, with the just accepting the depression or the negative charges or whatever the court's saying. Instead of getting angry and fighting against these demons who have all the power, you accept it and you learn what you're dealing with, and you find a way to operate and discharge and basically just move on, be done with it, handle it, don't hide from it, don't get angry, right? It's like everything we've been talking about. And this seems no different, the courts,
And it is yours. It is yours to own. That mistake that you think they did, that unfairness that they did, somehow that's inside of you. We're a holographic projection. Everything that exists is inside of you. So you can own that too. You say, yep, I did an unfairness to myself. I'm the one who did it to me. And so I'm sorry I did that to me. I'm sorry that you got involved in the thing that I did to me. And thank you for showing me the error of my ways. That is the most humble position you can
It is. And they love it. I go in, I'm always like, I'm an idiot. I'm just like, I say all these things. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. And they laugh and it works for me, you know? Like, again, instead of that energy of, I'm angry, you're the enemy, I'm in a war, I want to win, this isn't right. It's that energy and the whole atmosphere, you know, just like if you're around someone who's angry, you right away get defensive and you put up a wall. You're not going to be able to communicate. We're not going to be able to get along when we're like that. We have to, like you said, just accept what we're in and try to have some love and compassion and be able to talk to others is where I've been getting at. I spent the first bunch of years getting beat up and beat up by the cops, then throwing my phones and ripping me out of my car, going to court, causing a scene there, and everybody's like, this maniac, you know? And it took me a while to realize that's not the right way. And, you know, all this stuff seems like full circle again, the circle you said, and it all matches. You know, we have to be able to accept things. We can't live in denial. We can't live in fear and anger. We have to live in love and acceptance, and then just figure out the best way to deal with these things, right? Even the law.
And I understand boundaries. Like I've had an issue with boundaries my whole life, and I didn't realize it's because I had self-worth issues. And because if you don't have self-worth, you don't have healthy boundaries, because you don't believe you deserve boundaries, and so you let people walk all over you. And then when people get too close, you push them away. You know, because there's love coming your way, you feel that you don't deserve love. You usually have fast relationships, like really quick relationships, because you trust people you don't know yet. You just, you know, unload on them, or you know, so you'll see people come in and out of relationships really fast when they're acting like that, when they don't have self-worth. And that can lead to depression because you keep destroying your own life. You don't realize that you're doing that because the core belief is that you're not worthy of love, wealth, you know, abundance, whatever it is that you think you want or think that would feel great. You sabotage it. People need to be aware of this inside, because that's part of the trauma brain. And also, if you ever felt unloved by your own parents, right, or rejected, that's very fundamental inside of you. And so you become one of the parents inside your own mind. So your inner thoughts are usually very judgy and very negative. You know, like how many times have you made a mistake and then inside your head you're like, stupid, you're so stupid, and you start you know, saying bad things about yourself, like stupid idiot, why do you do that, stupid idiot? Or, you know, your negative self-talk needs to be addressed. And so I sometimes I'll catch myself and go, yeah, it was dumb, why are you so ridiculous? But then I go, oh, you're so ridiculous, and I'll laugh. You're so silly, you silly goose, you know, like this. Like, it's a child's going to make mistakes. That's my inner child making a mistake, and now I'm going to punish my inner child because she's learning. That's so ridiculous. No, what do I do with my own child? Like, you made a mistake, yeah, maybe we're upset right now because it had repercussions. Okay, we'll deal with it though. But it's okay. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay you made a mistake. It's okay you did that. Okay, now we make amends. We look at how can we make amends for our mistakes? How can we ask for the forgiveness of our sins? And this is this is what we need to be, where we need to come from. Yeah. And, you know, and then the boundaries come in place where we deserve to say no to something that would hurt us. It's all right that we don't have to accept everything. And it's okay that people are putting their judgments and crap and whatever on you. They're just trying to use you as the clean mirror that you are to see themselves. This has been my whole life. I always thought people just hated me. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And then what would happen is I'm like, well, maybe I'm not giving enough. Maybe I'm not being nice enough. Maybe I'm not being this enough. And I would change the way I was behaving so they would like me. How much peer pressure do we see in this world, right? Yeah. That's what happens.
Well said, yeah.
Then you lose yourself. Then what happens? Depression. You lost yourself. Then what happens? I don't feel right in my body. Let's cut off my parts. Oh, still feel like crap. Oops. Yeah. So this is all because of the same patterns we keep reliving over and over again. And that's why I'm saying this work is really crucial, and to teach our children this how to forgive themselves, how to make amends when they make a mistake, and that it's okay. This is how we learn, this is how we grow. And hopefully we can avoid the fatal mistakes because we learned them young enough. So I let my daughter climb trees and, fall down and.
That's how I am with my daughter, which is totally different than her mother, who's very protective. And I remember the last time I had her, she did something and she got hurt. And she was like, why didn't you tell? Why'd you? I said, Vienne, I have to let you be. Like, if that's how it is, everything's dangerous.
Yeah.
I can't let you cut your food. You could cut yourself. So let me cut all your food for you. Like, this is life. There's danger in it. You know what I mean? Like, this is how you learn. It is through, mistakes and getting hurt and picking yourself back up. I mean, all I'm going to do is tell you the truth. But at the end of the day, it's your decision. We all know you can't control anyone, even your own kids. They're their own spirit, personality. Usually when you try to control, what happens? You get the opposite. You get rebellion.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't want to do that. So I'm all just about, again, education, just the truth, and being able to communicate is what I keep hoping is going to help. Like, you don't have to hide nothing. You can talk to me, because I'm not going to judge and hate on you and punish you, That's how I am with my daughter.
Yeah, I even say, even if I make a mistake and I did freak out, hey, say I had a bad, I'm tired, I'm not feeling good. Okay, there's all kinds of things that you can't control. You're not in a good place. Okay, something happens, you got triggered. It happens. Okay, we're not perfect. It happens. And so if I've done something where I'm just bleh, then at least what you do is you own it. And then so through those experiences, you teach your children, look, I apologize. I was out of my alignment and I reacted, and that was a mistake. And I'm asking you for forgiveness for my mistake. And let's do better next time. Let's try it. Maybe I'll do this next time or whatever. So anytime we make a mistake with our kids, if we just own it and with them present, it depends on the age, of course, but where they're comfortable, but at least saying sorry, if, they learn by what you do, by your actions. And I see my daughter all the time. If she does makes a mistake now, she just says, oh, oops, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'm like, oh, good. What do you need? And so it's not a drama. It doesn't become this.
And doing it at the young age, that'll definitely make it a lot easier for them to, where it just becomes natural. And as opposed to, someone who's 20, 30, 40, who lived that problem. And then you have to try to, it's a lot harder down the line. So it is so important that we do it with the kids right away, like what you're doing. I mean, I imagine it's going to be a lot easier. And then avoiding it, and then at 18, 19, 20, and they have all these problems, and then you're trying to
see, I trust her now, because now that she knows this, when she goes out in the world and does things, I know she has sense with her.
So you trust.
I know, because I let her, when we put her in ice skating and she'd fall, and oh my gosh, look, it's not easy to watch your children go
through. Get hurt. Yeah.
You have to be strong inside, and you have to let them falter and know that then they know you're there for them, that they're not alone in it. But like, it does serve them in the long run for so many reasons. Like, there was one guy on TikTok, a father walks into his son's room. His son is a paraplegic, and he's trying to lift himself out of his wheelchair onto his bed, but he's stuck. So he's come across an issue. And so he walks in right mid-stuckness, right, where the child is stuck. Now, a parent would go, oh, no, oh, I'll help you. And I help him up. That's not what the father did. He said, oh, I'm here, I'm supporting you, but I think you've got this. Here, I'm going to give you a suggestion. Just push your chair back like half an inch. Just push it back a tiny bit. And that's what the boy did. And then now you got it. Now he had the leverage to lift himself onto the bed himself. You should have seen his face at the end of this. Is like a 5-year-old, 6-year-old boy. He's beaming ear to ear. He's so proud of himself.
And he did it himself.
Yeah. So that's wiring in him a wonderful sensation that when he achieves something in his life, he will feel the own reward. He's his own reward. You don't need an external reward. He's got it. What a beautiful teaching, right? But the dad could have just lifted him up, and there would have been no lesson there, right?
Yeah.
He could do it his whole life, and probably will be involved in his whole life.
Then he would learn that he's a victim.
He would learn he's a
program
victim.
That you're a victim and you need help.
That's right. And same thing with, they did studies on playgrounds. They make playgrounds so safe. this safety thing, oh, I want it, just makes me so with that they want to keep, it's the same thing as the government, they want to keep us safe. Well, I'm not your child. See, this is the dynamic, the government as the parent. The children are stupid, clearly, because they're general public. They don't even know their special status. They keep paying with money. It's stupid, right? They're creating more debt. They're stupid. They need us. They're dumb. We need to protect them. So it's like the bad parent abusing them and palliating them and lifting them on the bed, not letting us do it ourselves. That's what that exactly mirror role is. And the sovereign is like, I got this. I know how to pick myself up. I've learned how to achieve something without necessary. I know how to ask for help properly, if I need actual help. Like I know how to, or I know my limitations, right? But they have these safety playgrounds. They're so super safe, right? And that's like the government safety. And they're the most dangerous playgrounds because actually my child dented her head on one of those stupid playgrounds. That perfect head. I carried her for 3 months to give birth to her, and she had this most perfect head. And I was so pissed off. She dented her head on this stupid playground. But the playgrounds that are the safest are the ones you wouldn't think. They did studies on these playgrounds that were just like wood and brick and just tossed it looked chaotic. It was like a rope on a tree that they could actually get onto. They could have run into a tree, climbing really high, like super high. And those were the safest playgrounds. The children learned their boundaries and limitations. They learned how to balance. They learned how to get help when they needed they got too high and they needed guidance. They learned all these amazing skill sets to not then later in life be prey to extreme harm that could lead to death. So they were saying that children need boundaries, they need rules and lessons and these things, but they need the freedom to make the mistake in a safe enough setting where it's not going to lead to something so traumatizing as the end of their life, right? So falling down and bruising themselves and learning their bodies and the balancing and stuff. So like even when my daughter was skating at the beginning, she'd always fall down. Then guess what? She found her legs. And then she grew and her fulcrum changed. So then she had to do it again because now her body's different. She had to learn again anew, how to stand on skates a little bit better. But that took 2 seconds. It's like a little bit of balance and she's right there. So she can correct herself now as she goes. And this is a flexible child that will not be prone to, severe problems later in life. She'll know how to handle things in her life and she won't be victim to the government. She knows about her birth certificate bond. I told her that money is debt. So paying a debt with a debt is actually technically illegal. And when you do that, you're contributing to the debt and you're actually to your own slavery because you continue to put the system into where is the debt going to be resolved? Well, they're going to sell you and sell our resources to other countries to balance the debt, which is what we're seeing. We have infiltration of China, infiltration of other countries because of the debt that we keep making ourselves and then blaming the government on. It's for lack of it.
The best one I read was that Economic Hitman, John Perkins, that book. It was mostly talking about South America, but it explained how they went and took over all the resources through the debt, oh, we're going to dump all this money into you, that's how they get you through the debt. That's awesome. I mean, your daughter's very lucky to have you. Me, unfortunately, because of my ex, and she has, most of the power. So it's not as easy for me. Anything that if I say money isn't real to my daughter or you're not on a ball or something like that, she right away, even the COVID thing, she's all scared and I can't get her and it becomes a fight between the parents. So it's not even worth it to me. To me, she's just going to right away look at it as parents fighting. I'm going to take my mom's side. So I'm not even going to fight. I'm going to have to wait, I guess, till she's older. And she's a little bit away from her mom's control. And then hopefully I could do what you're doing. So.
And also I say to people who are in this sort of situation where they don't feel that they can communicate honestly with their own children, because of programming or brainwashing by another parent who's asleep and deeply programmed. that you can communicate, you're very intimately connected genetically for one to your child, but also on an energy level, there's no space and no time. Okay. This is our perceptions of depth and what's real and what's solid and all of this. We understand it's all vibrational energy, right? So that means we can affect whatever we think is out there from inside. And so I have an exercise that I would teach when I was, teaching Reiki and energy work with people, that if they have a conflict or they have an issue with an individual and that individual will not speak with them, or they feel they can't communicate on the outside with them, communicate on the inside with them. So imagine that you walk into a room, decorate it how you want. And by the way, some children need to be taught how to visualize. My child did not know how to naturally visualize. I had to train her how to visualize. And once I taught her how to visualize, she knows how to visualize now. So I found that interesting because I assumed, because I can visualize, that everyone can do it, but not everyone is visual. But I trained her to visualize. Now she knows how to do it. So visualize that you're walking into a room with the person you want to talk to, and then you're sitting down in a chair. And now first you ask permission to their soul. May I communicate with you? And if you feel that it's yes or a positive, then go ahead. If you get an X or you get then you have to honor that. I have had that only a couple of times, but usually it's a yes. And then you can just pretend in that scenario, you're saying everything you want to say to them. You're saying all the things. I love you, or I'm mad at you, or I didn't like this. Doesn't matter. It can be messy, it can be pretty, doesn't matter. And then imagine what they say back to you. So imagine you're having a conversation and then you respond, and you just keep doing this until you feel clear and you communicate. And I've had feedback.
Yeah, I like that.
Blow your mind that people. So in one case of a daughter and father, they weren't getting along and she was very distraught about it. And so she did this with her father. She actually decided to do it in the shower. She felt like water was helping her. So she did this procedure in the shower, and she literally dried off from the shower, got dressed, went downstairs, and he approached her and gave her a huge hug and said, "I'm sorry," and kissed her, kissed her cheeks.
Yeah.
And she was just blown away, by it. He owned the thing. He was being very belligerent. You didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to talk about it. He didn't care. He was like this, dismissive. And now he did. He cared. Right. So there's more ways to affect our reality through the inside than the outside. And the outside way is the messy way.
Oh, well said. Yeah, I didn't think about that angle. Yeah.
So you can communicate with her. You can do teachings with her. You can send her all the teachings of the realm to her in your mind, these sorts of things.
I like that. Yeah.
So you don't feel frustrated as well. And then you're also clearing if nothing else, if nothing more, that you're feeling good, that you have taken action, that you have done your due diligence as a parent to do your best for your child, that lessens the harm that might happen if you got into a fight with your ex and all that kind of thing. And she's going to get more heavy-handed because you're the lunatic who thinks the earth is flat and thinks pharmaceutical drugs are bad and vaccines are bad and all these things, right? She's locked into the subconscious programming. So she's not consciously aware. So these are people running on programs. I think this is what a lot of people in the truth community call NPCs. So NPCs are those who are running their subconscious program. They're not consciously aware of what's going on, right?
Yeah.
When someone awake is consciously aware, that means they pour the waters of consciousness upon the things that they do. They're watching themselves as a witness, and they're, reflecting on their behavior often and trying to figure themselves out and the world they're in, and question things and apply critical thinking and these sorts of things, because you have to at that point in order to move forward. Yeah, and one thing I just wanted to tie back with the diet, because I didn't feel like I completed that. I have come into a real place of acceptance with all things. Okay, we have to, in order to affect change, like I said, we have to accept. So I accept that there's every different diet for any different person. So each individual could have a unique diet and it's correct for them. So there's no wrong diet and there's no right diet per se, or they're all right diets if you've found it for yourself. Do you know what I'm saying? Because there's examples that you can see on both ends of the spectrum. You can see, for example, an emaciated vegan. You can see a vegan who's a weightlifter and they're strong and vital. And so those two people, if you look at their lifestyles, might have completely different lifestyles, other involved factors, digestive concerns, metabolic concerns, stress level. Like, so we can't really judge what people need that in that way. Like, I don't agree with, say, like the Eskimo diet, for example, right? Where blubber and that sort of, look at the conditions people are living in there. I mean, that's a hard life.
Yeah, to me, that's like survival. Like you just.
It's survival. If they didn't have that, that struggle, they would eat different. If they could grow other food there.
Yeah, like you wouldn't want a mango or a plum.
Yes, right. But, and I'm not saying that diet's necessarily healthy either, because they usually lose their teeth and they age quite rapidly. They're exposed to a lot of sun, so maybe it's sun damage, but the diet isn't correcting their sun damage, so they age more rapidly. So one can argue, oh, well, there's all these different diets. Now, it's just the way that the conditions that they're facing and how they're trying to survive. So that's one aspect of diet, right? And then, if you're depleted, depends. Like if you're nutritionally depleted and your gut's not absorbing, maybe you need some bone broth or something to like fix your gut. You might be in that state. It doesn't mean you have to eat meat for the rest of your life, but I fell off the wagon with veganism once I got pregnant. I couldn't maintain the diet. I was losing teeth.
Filling you up, like you felt like you needed to eat more.
And I had to trust my cravings, and I had to it was hard on me. I was like militant vegan. Like I was like killing animals. It's terrible, wrong, and all this stuff. And I was judging it real hard. And I had to just go in the other direction and like accept it and deal with my guilt and deal with, all of it. And then I realized there's a medium road that I can walk, and it's responsible. So there's a responsible way that I can, deal with meat and things in my life and eggs and stuff. Like all my neighbors have chickens and they're happy chickens. So I'm going to have the eggs, they're there for me, and I feel good or I don't feel good, whatever the food is. Like if you desire it and you're craving it, it might be something there for you. But actually, Andrew Kaufman just did, I think he called it deconstructing diets. He just did a course on all the diets. So he had experts come in to discuss all the diets. So that might be interesting for people who are exploring. Yeah. But I think the main thing with the food is do right by yourself. Like do what you need to do for you. But if you find yourself judging others because they're doing it different, then you got to check yourself, because I know the factory farming industry is fucking disgusting. It shouldn't exist. Okay. I 100% agree. I think all of the industries we have are gross and wrong and need to stop. Like this, even the way they slaughter them and how they pack them into these hot cars. People are hypocrites. They love one animal, love a good rescue story, but they don't care about how the calf is ripped away from the mother, and they aren't aware of what's really going on, right? But what we're going to do is do better. We keep trying to do better and cleaner and make better choices and forgive ourselves for our sins, our mistakes, and I ask all the animals for forgiveness. I send, my faith and my prayer from inside. I do what I can do to try to offer back to the scenario of how they.
No, I get that. Yeah.
So I'm just saying that I found this middle road with the diets, and also that I like to change what I eat from time to time. And there might be a time when you do a very sacred ritual where, ingest butter, or I don't know, you do something for a certain period of time. Then you live in a tropical climate and you can eat fruit all day long and feel great, and you get lots of sunlight, and it's a perfect diet for you. I could literally just eat coconuts, plantain, bananas, and mangoes when I was in Costa Rica. I think that, and I'd have some rice. I have like rice and beans and that. Like I lived off of that for months, and I was fine. I was fit. I was happy. It was awesome. My poops were great. Everything was great, right? That worked for then and there. Yeah. And if you're sick and you can't digest, simple food, simple diet, simple stuff. Yeah. I usually take people off meat because of the amount of enzymes required to digest heavy proteins and that kind of stuff. I think we're still babies in our awareness and knowledge, and we're coming into our adolescence. And all of these things will be looked at again and again. But if you have a local community like I do, I go to the farms themselves. You can go right to the farm and you say, how are you dealing with your animals? What are your methods? Are they ethical? I mean, yeah, they're all going to eventually go to the slaughterhouse, but there's different ways to slaughter animals, and there's different ways.
Were they free grazing and
Did they have
free range and
free range and all that stuff? Now, if I had a farm with animals, they'd probably all be in my house.
Me too.
And I'd probably never be able to slaughter them. So I'm thankful for those who have abilities to do some of these jobs that, not all of us can do. Like I can look at surgeries while eating a sandwich, that doesn't bother me. Some people are squeamish with that stuff because I've dealt with the body so much, right? So it's a different sensitization. But I guess my point is, if people feel offended that other people are eating meat, then they have more work to do than they think.
Yeah. Well, I'm someone who doesn't want to judge others and focus on other people. Someone like the guy Johnny that we both know, we've had a lot of issues. I don't want to focus, even like you were saying earlier about talk about good things. I don't want to just stay on the negative and just focus and just always pointing out the bad and focusing on others and what they need to do. I don't feel that's right. And that doesn't work, because right away we all know you're going to put up a wall, a person's going to fight with you. You say you're right, they're wrong, I'm good, you're evil. The conversation's done. They're not going to talk to you. There's not going to be a communication at that point. So yeah, I'm someone who's totally against stop worrying about other people, and all you really can do is control yourself, and you just got to take care of yourself. And then through the way you act, others can see that, and maybe they'll want to be like that. But to force what you want onto other people is one of the stupidest things to me. It's just going to get you to fight with everybody, is my opinion.
Well, it comes from love, ultimately. It's just misappropriated love. We have love and compassion for life. If you have that inside of you, as we all do, then if you see life being hurt, then you feel that, and you feel compassion for those who suffer, then you want to end their suffering. And that's a natural human quality, which is endearing. The problem gets to where we are trying to, we're talking about massive industries here. And I tried to do all I could to change it. And the only thing I could do was just not allow it into my personal world. And once I got so negative with the judging of everyone, I walk down the street and see people at the hot dog stand eating a hot dog. And I hated those people. I thought the worst things inside of my mind about those people. Now, is that a loving, compassionate place that I thought I was being at because I'm protecting animals? No. So I'm okay.
Oh, it sounds like anger.
Yeah, I'm loving the animals, but I'm hating the people because then I'm not in loving compassion. I'm not there. I haven't arrived, right?
Yeah.
So I had to look at what I was doing, because that got me to the worst place I've ever been in as far as depression goes. I was the most miserable, depressed person after I graduated from university. I thought the world was shit. I thought people were shit. I was angry about GMOs because I had just got a degree in it, and I realized how damaging it was. I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are promoting the most disgusting things, and it's so big. How do I stop it? They're just doing it, and my say doesn't matter. And I feel that way about chemtrails, and I'm so angry when I see them putting the lines, and I'm like, I want to just shoot them down with my mind, and I want to destroy them. I want them gone, dead. It's just, and I have to stop myself. That only hurts me. I just hurt me and the collective with that energy. I just blasted us all with hate. How did does it stop the line in the sky? Not at all. Does it stop the person eating the hot dog? Did it stop the slaughter of the cow? It did not, and probably contributed to it by that energy, by means of it. So we want to check ourselves before we wreck ourselves.
Yeah.
And I had to learn all that.
Wow. I mean, I remember I told Fabian and you that I wanted to do a short show, but it's always so amazing to talk to you. I'm sure we could keep going, but I do want to try to keep it short for YouTube or whatever. Where have we been going? Almost.
We can edit the video into components too. Like that's another option I find with longer videos. Sometimes we can, if we talk about a variety of subjects, but I don't know, some people tell me that they'll, put on my stuff in the background, they'll be doing things while they listen. And
yeah.
So you know what, we're being honest with what we wanted to talk about. And for me, I'm like, I don't care about the time as much if it's important information and people will, what I
I
mean?
just
People
feel
are
bad,
thinking,
I didn't want to keep you too long.
oh no, don't feel bad. I enjoy conversations. I think it's important. And, I like talking with you because you're genuine and, you're educated as well. Like you've looked at and gone into the belly of the beast and you see, right? So it's important to have conscious conversations. So, for that, I give my time because I feel I know my purpose because I found my purpose. And that's to be the teacher and it's to be the one that puts herself out there and to be brave and be judged, whatever it is, and be okay with it and accept myself no matter what. And then model that for my child, but also for others, and hope that they will achieve what they're meant to in this limited life and also in their eternal, aspects, and to bring a lightheartedness to it to some degree, because they're very heavy topics. And I try to joke and I try to I actually see myself like a comedian sometimes. I don't think other people do, but
I try to be the same way, and I don't think people see me that way either.
I think we both would do wonderful with stand-up because I've done stand-up before and I got really good feedback. And sometimes I cuss and I'm trying to not, because I know I don't mean to trigger people. It's just I'm trying to be like really fundamentally honest, and sometimes that's my trucker mouth comes out when I'm fundamentally honest. But I'm also trying to be delicate to others and consider others, also. So it's all again modeling, for people, and that's what gets me up in the morning, right? So I appreciate us doing this and sharing this information and just talking free form. And I used to even judge myself on the camera like crazy. I mean,
I never even wanted to be on camera.
Yeah.
I wanted to be like that band Tool, like you just see a shadow of me or something. Maybe like I never wanted to do it to be like people know me or my face recognized.
It was nerve-wracking at first. I didn't know. Like the first video, you could see I'm terrified. It's the one on fevers. It's like
okay,
or something. I'm like wide-eyed.
Like everything else, though, we get a little bit more used to it,
Yeah, I think we become seasoned, we become mature, we become wise, we take the risks, we accept the faults, we look at what we're supposed to do and we just try to do it as best we can. And that's all we can ask of anybody or from ourselves as well. So I think we're going to get there. I do still feel that there's a real splitting off, and that those of us who are consciously aware are working on new systems and are getting to the point of how the law works and how we can put ourselves into special standing.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of awakenings in a lot of areas, a lot of new things,
And it is interesting that it is pockets, eh? It's like little, and a gentleman who's dead now, a gentleman that I met a while ago, he said to me, he saw the world as like beehives. So he saw that everybody has their beehive, and eventually the beehives grow, and then inner roads between the two beehives like connect and amalgamate. And that's kind of what we're doing. We're like all these little beehives of communities that have sprung up, and they're all teaching, and we're all growing and learning and unlearning, and they're growing, and then they're going to connect. And that's going to be really interesting times for us, and powerful times when we finally do and create our own ways of solving problems without causing more damage. And I'm looking forward to all of this. There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
For sure. It's hopeful. And
Yeah, that's a very positive message.
yeah, I know it looks not good out there in a lot of ways. I'm upset about the weather a lot. I don't like being under attack with weather warfare. I feel like it goes against my free will. I don't agree, I don't consent. And so what I've done is taken measures to affect my land. So I've done electroculture. I put out vinegar as well that dissipates the chemtrails. I've put a few videos on that if people are interested.
Nice.
So I'm empowering myself. I'm saying no with the way I'm responding, rather than just trying to shoot them down with my mind.
I know. I used to think like that too.
Yeah.
Meaning
So,
traveling, but yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
So I hope that people will glean something for them, and that they feel that there's actions that are realistic for them from this, even if it's just working on their trauma, cleaning the trauma up, or changing what they're eating, deciding on a different diet, or deciding to look closer at the food they're putting into their bodies, or, moving to another country that doesn't poison the population the same way. I don't know. Like people say, oh, it's going to come everywhere and whatever. And they are right in some respects. Like even Mexico signed on to the UN Charter, right? So that means at some point they're going to try. But these are Mexican people that I don't see them liking the government, or even agreeing or complying with it as much as Canadians are, or Americans are. Canadians and actually Australians, we're the most meek I've seen of all the countries. We're in a lot of trouble. And the UK is in a huge amount of trouble. My friend is here from the UK, and she's like, they're moving the 15-minute city forward quite rapidly.
Yeah.
And they're making like congestion zones where they're limiting what traffic can even exist at any given point in time. And they're eliciting fines and even jail time if you drive, during the congested hours. Like you're not allowed to go out. If you don't work and you're not commuting, you're not allowed to drive because it's congestion time.
Wow.
So watch them.
The leading futuristic psychos. Yeah, it does seem like the UK. I mean, they got the most surveillance. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, it's bad.
I know Australia was real bad with the COVID thing. I had people out there that were like, they couldn't leave their hotels. It was like, yeah.
And now they're going to work on the climate lockdown model, this under the same guise. And that's why they've been messing with our weather so badly. And they're trying to make it look the problem reaction solution that they're so
look, the environment's messed up. We got to do something. It's all you evil people driving cars.
Yeah, and the meat, and that's why they're pumping up the vegan thing as well. And even though it's not proper veganism, a lot of what people are doing,
That
like when I started,
meat and stuff is poison. Oh. It's toxic poison. That's
gross. Won't put it in my body. No way. That's basically cancer. That food will develop cancer in that individual. I mean, it'll build up in the tissues. And if your body can't even process it, then that's a tumor. So, I mean, yeah, but I don't know.
Well, there's probably a good, don't be depressed.
Yeah.
No, but
there's laughter therapy too, by the way. And they do it in a lot,
right? And it releases like endorphins and chemicals that help us, our health, right?
I usually say if you're
serotonin. Or no, I forget the name.
Say again?
I'm trying to remember the exact name of the chemical that's like supposed to make you feel good.
Well, there's dopamine and serotonin. They have different.
Oh, so I'm thinking of a dopamine. I think there was a certain type I remember. But
there's oxytocin.
That's what I was thinking of. Oxytocin.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that what you get from the laughing? I heard. Is it oxytocin? And like nurturing. Yeah.
Feeling of love will release oxytocin as well. Yeah. And just laugh. Like if you feel depressed, put on some comedy that you like put on a comedy show and try to laugh, try to get yourself unstuck.
That's what I tried it.
Yeah, that helps. Or sing, trying to get yourself into a place where you can actually like use vibratory methods or tuning forks. Yeah. Tuning forks, humming. I have a friend who will hum on your body, like will do your body, and it clears and heals like stuck energy inside the body. So, and they used to, in ancient times, they used to have bells everywhere and those organs, and they were healing tools. They were,
Yeah, that's what I keep saying. I think the pyramid and all these things, they weren't burial tombs. And a lot of these, like, I found a indigenous wisdom guy who was saying that's literally what they were for, was they would listen to the people's, and they could tell by their tune what was not tuned right, and then they were able to retune their energy. And that's what ancients were doing, I heard.
Yeah, and that's what she was doing. What she was doing was, it was a feedback system. So she, ooh, and in her ear, she could hear when it was blocked. So ooh, she could, and then she knew it was a block, and then she would focus there, and she might be atonal or change it, the frequency depending on the feedback she was getting, and she would work it until it cleared, and she healed herself of cancer doing this, by the way.
That's awesome.
That and urine therapy.
Our favorite topic there. Or the fun.
I get so much.
I bet.
It's unfortunate how ignorant people are, how judgy they
We're
are. Programmed. And what you will always see in those types, by the way, if you ask them how many books they've read on the topic or how knowledgeable on the topic, they don't know anything. They haven't done they just automatically discounted it and judge it. They didn't study it. So well, I've read 5 books on urine therapy and been doing it for the last 10 years, and also been promoting it and have lots of feedback from clients who have had amazing successes with it. So, I mean, you're now coming against someone experienced and read with it, and also not, indoctrinated, like someone who has done the work of not being a slave. So that means the importance of integrity and honesty is paramount, right? So it's not a trickster person, because their egos are dealt with, right? So, but they didn't see it. They can't see that would be trustworthy information. I sometimes get upset when people do that to me, because I'm like, do you know me? When have I ever said something or recommended something that's false? I wouldn't do that, because I'm only going to share what I know over time and experience has worked, because I'm not interested in tarnishing my reputation with just to make a buck or whatever people are doing. That's not my MO. If I find something that's awesome, I'm going to scream it out to you so that you can figure it out too. That's the whole point of it. So, it's, I don't know, people have to
You're doing great work, Amanda. I mean, like I said, you're like a rock star to me. You're like involved in so many things. Now I see even the law you're getting more into. So, thank you for everything you're doing. It's an honor and a privilege anytime to talk to you and do these shows with you. So, thank you. And I think this is powerful. Shout out again to Fabian and other people out there affected. This is definitely a big subject. I think a lot of people will enjoy this. I think it's really important. I think a lot of people are going to want to hear this. And to me, nobody better and cooler than Amanda Vollmer talking about it. So, thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, and maybe we'll do a law one soon.
Yeah, when
I'd like to hear how you do it then.
Yeah, probably by like end of the summer. I'm doing some traveling then and going to a bunch of there's so many events now happening. But by September, October,
I'll remember that, and I'll reach out to Fabian.
Yeah,
and we'll set something up. And thank you so much, Amanda. It was fun as always.
You're welcome. Thank you for your energy too and time.
Thank you. All right, I guess we'll talk soon.